fielding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
We've signed a climate convention on the importance of economic instruments and free markets. Were included in this mammoth Agenda 21 document and the Rio Declaration. Let me be clear on one fundamental point. The United States fully intends to be the world's preeminent leader in protecting the global environment.
Coming up, Technocracy News. Welcome to Technocracy News and Trends. Patrick Wood here, Editor-in-Chief. My first question to you today is, have you ever heard anybody say that they have voices in their head, or that some voice in their head told them to do something? I see this quite frequently on the news over the years, and often with mass killers and stuff and other psychopaths. They say that they had voices in their head that were telling them things to do. And sometimes they did heinous things, too, that they got arrested for and sent to jail. But there's new technology now that the military has been working on that will make voices in your head a reality. My headline here is Pentagon, lasers that beam messages into your head. It certainly is not a joke. Talking lasers can send audible messages now directly into your head from up to hundreds of miles away. This technology, when perfected, will be used by military and unquestionably by civilian applications to control crowds and individuals. And if one can think about suggestive marketing and things like that, why, this will be a technology gone wild at some point. But right now, the military is proving it. They're making it work. There's actually a demonstration of it and a video that I put into this article. The article states that military scientists at the Pentagon are developing talking lasers which can beam warnings straight into the enemy's head from hundreds of miles away. Weapons researchers at the Department of Defense say the high-tech weapon will be able to send brief messages in the form of audible speech across combat zones. The aircraft, ship, and truck-mounted devices are being developed as part of the military initiative called the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. That website, by the way, if you look it up, the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate, is quite amazing. I looked at it and spent a few minutes there this morning, and it's like, yeah, they're doing a lot of stuff. In fact, I put an infographic at the bottom of this article from their website. The scientists plan to use a phenomenon of physics called the laser-induced plasma formation to make the laser a reality. First, they fire a powerful laser that creates a ball of plasma. Then, a second laser works to oscillate the plasma, creating sound waves. These intense laser bursts can then perfectly mimic human language, Chief Scientist Dave Law told the Military Times. He added that the technology could be ready for battle in just 5 years. Scientists say these lasergrams will soon be able to beam hundreds of miles away. The news will send shudders through the conspiracy theorist community, who have long claimed the government uses radio waves as part of its thought control program. Now, that's what the article says. And yes, there have been many people over the years who have said that the government has mind control programs using radio waves. This one now is certifiable. The military themselves have admitted it, and it's now in the open for all to see and read. So this is a very dangerous and disturbing technology that's being unleashed on the world. Certainly it does have a battleground application, but it also has serious societal implications as well. So we'll leave that story behind and go on to the next one, and it's slightly related, except it's on the other side. Cognitive liberty is on the chopping block now. Is it right for the government or other companies, for that matter, to read your thoughts? That is, the most private things inside your head without your knowledge and or consent? Well, the title of this story is Cognitive Liberty. No, you cannot read my thoughts. The article starts out, Facebook has created devices that read all the words of your inner voice and Elon Musk's Neuralink is creating brain-computer interfaces that will have thousands and later millions of nodes, temporarily mitigating remote mind control of your inner voice. Could involve headphones for music and distractions of your own thoughts to less sensitive topics. However, the world is clearly developing where your thoughts and brain activity will be readable by anyone with relatively inexpensive devices. We have already lost privacy to our financial activity, internet activity, retail activity, and smartphones. China, India, Iran, Russia, Japan, USA, and European nations are actively working to improve existing magnetic resonance, functional infrared, and the magnetic encephalography spectrums to develop future military applications. The U.S. Air Force believes BCI interfaces could provide faster reaction times for firing missiles, drones, and guns. The article continues, there are many dramatic advances in mind reading which use BCI, that is brain-computer interfaces, to decode brain states to reconstruct what a subject is experiencing. There is a growing market for computer game and devices that are controlled by brain states. Wireless technology has made it possible to record from mobile humans. If you're concerned about these kinds of things, you definitely should read this article. Listen to the video, by the way, that I placed in here. My comments at the top are this. As Obama's 2013 Brain Initiative program to map the human brain pays off, technology can now read your thoughts and emotions to reveal your inner voice. Technocrats envision total control over the human animal. And yes, this is exactly what's happening. We can thank Barack Hussein Obama in 2013, indeed, for kickstarting the so-called Brain Initiative to map the human brain. We knew on day one that this is going to be trouble for mankind. He said, I remember the speech carefully. In fact, I put the speech in a video right in this article so you can listen to what he said. I remember thinking at the very time he spoke these words that the brain mapping process was as important as mapping the human genome. Well, if that were to take place, you end up exactly where we just ended up here. This is where it would have led, and we can see it so clearly now. They're actually doing it. So Facebook is one of the first commercial entities out of the gate to want to implement a brain interface so that you can share your thoughts with them without opening your mouth. This is extremely dangerous technology, and once it's out of the bag, again, it's like Pandora's box. Once it's been set loose, every commercial operation in the world that wants it and can pay for it will be getting their hands on it so that they can read your thoughts and your emotions without your knowledge and use that to suggest to you all the things that you should do. Well, it is a brave new world that we're living in. We need to stand up against this stuff and reject it wherever we can. If Facebook says it wants to do this, that's one more reason to leave Facebook. And oh, by the way, did I say walk as you leave? No, I think you should run as you leave Facebook and find another platform. One platform that I am deploying on right now is MeWe.com. MeWe is pledged to not censor and not filter posts that are put up. You may not like some of the things that MeWe allows to be posted, but you have total control over your feed, and you can simply block somebody from sending something into your feed if you don't like it, and you can get your own customized feed that way, information that you want and not information that everybody else wants you to have or see, or not filtered information, which changes your mindset about so many things. So mapping the human brain is part of the Brain Initiative that was set up just 6 years ago by then President Barack Hussein Obama, and now it's unleashed on the world. The last article that I want to bring up is really the most important of the day, and it has to do again with DARPA. DARPA is the organization at the Department of Defense that's involved in high-risk technology projects. If there's anything nefarious, it seems like, in the spook world or in the advanced technology for military purposes world, it is DARPA. They seem to get their hand in just about everything. And in this article, I explain at the top, and I'll just lay it out to you right off. Technocrats at DARPA and the Pentagon are implementing high-altitude surveillance balloons across the United States capable of wide area tracking of everything that moves on the ground. This is a major development for geospatial intelligence, or GEOINT, that is explained on page 130 in my book, Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order. Now, this article starts out like this. The U.S. military is conducting wide area surveillance tests across 6 Midwest states using experimental high-altitude balloons. Documents filed with the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, of course, reveal. Up to 25 unmanned solar-powered balloons are being launched from rural South Dakota and drifting 250 miles through an area spanning portions of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Missouri before concluding in central Illinois. Traveling in the stratosphere at altitudes of up to 65,000 feet, the balloons are intended to provide, quote, a persistent surveillance system to locate and deter narcotic trafficking and homeland security threats, close quote, according to a filing made on behalf of the Sierra Nevada Corporation, an aerospace and defense company. Balloons are carrying high-tech radars designed to simultaneously track many individual vehicles day or night through any kind of weather. The tests, which have not previously been reported, received an FCC license to operate from mid-July until September, following similar flights licensed last year. Author Holland Michael, the co-director of the Center for the Study of the Drone at Bard College in New York, said, "What this new technology proposes is to watch everything at once. Sometimes it's referred to as combat TiVo, because when an event happens somewhere in the surveilled area, you can potentially rewind the tape to see exactly what occurred and rewind even further to see who was involved and where they came from." The tests have been commissioned by the U.S. Southern Command, that is SOUTHCOM, which is responsible for disaster response, intelligence operations, and security cooperation in the Caribbean and Central and South America. SOUTHCOM is a joint effort by the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and other forces, and one of its key roles is identifying and intercepting drug shipments headed for the United States. Jay Stanley, a senior policy analyst at the ACLU, says, "We do not think that American cities should be subject to wide area surveillance in which every vehicle could be tracked wherever they go." Well, amen to that. It's not often that I agree with the ACLU on anything, but in this case, they're making an accurate statement. Most citizens absolutely do not want wide area surveillance where everything on the ground can be tracked at once. But this story goes much deeper. And the reason is, as I explain in my book on page 130 and a couple of other places, I also talk about this a little bit. The whole topic of geospatial intelligence, or GEOINT, is what's being played out here. GEOINT involves the total surveillance of everything that moves. And it includes all of the sensors and cameras and stuff on the ground, and it includes all of the imagery that comes from the air, as well as imagery that comes from outer space. Everything is gathered up, posted into artificial intelligence programs, and then analyzed for significance. This is the heartbeat of GEOINT. And this program that DARPA is working on plays into the concept of GEOINT perfectly. In fact, it hands them a trump card. They will now be able to coordinate the intelligence gathered from the balloons, which ride high above the ground, with other local data gathered on the ground. Together, it will give a complete picture of what's going on. This is beyond spying. This is beyond simple surveillance. This is absolute dominance. The program that came out of GEOINT originally back in 2011 was called Mastering the Human Domain. This was a key concept in the military, mastering the human domain. Some of you might remember the so-called Jade Helm exercise that took place across the southern states, from Texas to Arizona to Mexico, some parts of Southern California. The Jade Helm exercise was an exercise called Mastering the Human Domain. It used only special forces, essentially, to conduct the trial, and apparently it was successful. They concluded the exercise and went away. But Mastering the Human Domain took a huge leap forward as they went back and perfected the software, worked out all the bugs and stuff, made it even better. The Mastering the Human Domain software based on GEOINT is being used in military zones now around the world, but it's also being used in our country as well against our own citizens. Mastering the Human Domain would not be something that the public would be really eager to receive if they understood that they are the domain that is to be mastered. I just cannot believe people do not understand what's going on here. Mastering the human domain, and we are the human domain. This is not good. This is the heartbeat of technocracy. Surveillance of everything, all the time, 24/7, real-time surveillance, is the ultimate endgame for technocracy. This is how they will apply their social engineering science to control all of society, but they have to know what's going on in society in order to control it. That's what surveillance is all about. That's what GEOINT is all about. That's what Mastering the Human Domain is all about. It's the science of social engineering that the technocrats have been playing with ever since the 1930s. They've never given up this dream. We see the dream resuscitated, as I state in my books, with the invention of the Trilateral Commission in 1973. We see it with the programs that were passed by them to the United Nations for Sustainable Development, for Agenda 21, that is the agenda for the 21st century, the 2030 Agenda, the New Urban Agenda, and all the other agendas that the UN has come out with. This whole green economy business is nothing more than technocracy warmed over from the 1930s. Americans just need to get their head wrapped around what's going on here. This new economic system, sustainable development, a resource-based economic system, which is technocracy from the 1930s, it depends upon total surveillance to make the system work. If they do not have total surveillance, their system will not work because they do not know how to fine-tune the societal machine. So every time you see something that has to do with surveillance from now on, I hope you think back to this discussion, that it's never about, oh, we're going to catch some drug smugglers, or, oh, we're going to prevent some sex trafficking or human trafficking. That's not the case at all. It's much more serious, and it is not necessary, by the way, even if those things were good goals, it is not necessary to surveil 100% of the citizens in order to find a tiny, tiny fraction of citizens that might be evildoers. What happened to regular police work that we've known for so many decades in the past? It used to work just fine. Okay, so a few people got away from the way we used to do it. But still, the ones that got nailed were good collars, and they went to jail, and they paid a price, and they deterred crime. They deterred other people from doing the same thing. That's not the mentality today at all. This has nothing to do with law enforcement. In fact, DARPA, per se, has absolutely nothing to do with law enforcement in our country. They're a military organization. What does the military have to do with law enforcement? The founders of our Constitution, as a matter of fact, specifically said that America should never have a standing army within the borders of this nation that would be under the control of the President of the United States. That was absolutely anathema to them back then, and it should be anathema to us today. The military should have no part in what's going on within the borders of our nation. And it doesn't matter whether it's an armed soldier or whether it's DARPA inventing this type of surveillance technology. They don't belong here. We must demand that they simply stop and don't do this. And if they're going to do it, go do it somewhere else in some other country. We'll probably pay a price for that because no other country likes this either. But in our country, which is based on the rule of law, which is based on liberty and freedom and unalienable rights, this type of stuff does not belong. It simply does not belong here. And if they are successful in implementing these total surveillance programs, America will no longer be the home of the free and the brave. Period. They know that. We don't know that yet. The battle line has been drawn. We see stuff like this coming through every week, every month. There's some story like this that comes out from DARPA or the military or whatever. They're doing something with surveillance. Folks, we need to wake up to this. I hope that you pass around this podcast to everybody you know and get them to read the articles on technocracy.news. We simply must alert Americans to what's going on here. And it's up to you and I to do it. If it isn't you and I, who will it be? And if it isn't now, when? You see, we just can't fall back on, well, I'll let somebody else do it. That time is over. We need to sound the alarm right now. Well, I'm Patrick Wood for Technocracy News and Trends. We'll see you next time.